Is that okay?
Yes, Rachel. Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, you well? Nimekutumia hunipata?
Haiko imefika, acha nione sasa kama imefika. Imefika. Yes, imefika.
No, tuacha ingie.
Umemanage ku reach Jenga?
Americhiwa.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you managed to speak to not Jenga, George.
George, yes, he's Jenga. Yes.
He's Jenga?
So I'm talking to you shortly.
Okay, very well.
Okay.
Hi, Jenga. Hello.
Good morning, Rachel. How are you?
Morning. How are you, Gibbons, Martin?
I'm very good.
Dr. Stanley is calling. Let me get back to you. Hello.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah. So, I just wanted to check a couple of things. In terms of the slides, I presume I'll just take control of the meeting at some point and just present the slides from my own desktop, yeah? Here you are. Can't hear you. You're on. I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Oh, good morning.
Ah, there we go.
Yes. Yes. So at some point when it's time for you to present, Dr. Stanley will make you host. Then you're able to share your screen from your end. Exactly. And be able to go through the slides.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I think you said
welcome, Dr.
about 20 minutes.
Yes. Hello, Professor. Very well.
Good morning, Dr. Stanley.
Yes. Great.
Well, do give me a nudge if I'm talking too much. You can always jump in and say, come on, hurry up. We'll be here all day.
That's fantastic. That's great. Thank you very much. We have also Mr. George Njenga.
Yes.
Good morning, George. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, I'm here from Nakuru.
Nakuru. Where's Nakuru?
The winning team.
I like your backdrop. That's good.
Yeah.
I like swimming, but I don't know how to swim.
You can hire me after the meeting to train you.
People carry what they don't have. Because what you have is cool.
Okay.
Good. Yes, well, we have rain in Scotland this morning, so it's we could do with more palm trees.
I remember you had shared how sometimes the weather is erratic.
It's always bad. It's always bad. So yes, I think we have 12 degrees and rain, I think, today.
Okay.
So that
Can
must
be
sound like
cold.
winter.
12 degrees is low.
Good.
Okay.
So I have a glass of water. My phone's on silent. Let me just check. Yeah, we're good.
Can participants share? No.
Daktari, we're good to go.
I think we can some minutes we see we are on, or they can share. Okay. Hold on. Okay.
Good morning. Today is the 17th of July, 2020. I can see we have 10 participants and we have our panelists ready. Welcome all of you to our webinar today. I'd like to start with a small quote shared by a good mind, Bruce Lee, and he said one day, emotions can be the enemy. If you give into emotion, you lose yourself. If you must be at one with the emotions, because the body always follows the mind. Our webinar today, integrating mental intelligence and emotional intelligence. Welcome to Stan Consulting Group Ltd. Founded in the year 2009, having been in this journey, interacting with both media and large organizations. Our business defined by different pillars, starting with strategy and planning, customer satisfaction, customer service, market activations and branding, human resource consulting. We do research services. We do training in different areas. We are also in technology consulting, especially on Salesforce automation, and also we do team building. What are the rules of our game today? We have our webinar. Today we're in a new reality. We have to embrace technology to keep sharing knowledge. So welcome in the webinar. At the bottom of your screen, you have a chat box, which you can use to write, send your opinion, your comments. If you have a question as the panelists giving discussion, use the question box and send in your question. We shall be able to answer the questions continuously as the discussion goes on, and also at the end of the program, in case there's any question that will not have been attended. We encourage our participants, you can mute your microphone so that then you don't have interference and you're able to follow easily, and any background noise does not interfere with the proceeding. We have 4 panelists that shall be taking us through the session. They'll discuss and they shall guide us through the discussion. You are free to ask any question at any point on the chat box. The webinar will be recorded and we shall share it on our YouTube channel in case you would like to listen to it later. I think with that, we are good to go. When you're sharing your comments on the chat box, please ensure that your settings you're sharing with all attendees, not just the panelists, so that everyone is able to see the questions coming in from the different participants. Who are our panelists today? We have our host, Dr. Stanley Karanja, the CEO and the group CEO, Stan Consulting Group Ltd, PhD in marketing, and a balanced scorecard specialist, a certified human resource practitioner. Second, we have our panelist, Martin Gibson, the co-founder of People Maps. He'll be sharing with us some great insights and knowledge on personality and how personality integrates with emotional intelligence to make you a better person and holistic and get to understand yourself. Then we have our that panelist, Mr. George Jenga. George Jenga is a principal, and he's going to be sharing with us on matters of intelligence. What is intelligence? George will be able to take us through this and better appreciate what is it exactly, or what is it not anyway. So at this point, I would like to invite Dr. Stanley Karanja to take us off, and I'm sure we shall all be listening and put in our views. Welcome, Dr. Dr. Stanley, you're on mute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's called the new reality. Good. Thank you. Principal Mr. George Jenga. Good morning. You're on mute. Yes, thank you. George.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yes, I want you to say hi. Also, I want Martin to say hi to the panelists, to this webinar. So for all those who are listening, so that we can be able to start, and each one to introduce self-introduction. I think it's good. Can we start with Professor Gibbons?
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I'm speaking to you today from sunny Scotland, way up in the north, and it's a great honour to be with you with Dr. Stanley and everybody else. So looking forward to this morning, and today I will be talking about very specifically personality profiling, personality psychology, essentially what makes you tick, who you are. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what George and Dr. Stanley have both got to say today, so it should be good.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Mwalimu, welcome.
Good morning. I hope Professor knows Mwali means a teacher.
Thank you, thank you. In fact, Professor wants me, there's something Professor wants me to translate to Kiswahili language. He has several books and wants me to translate to Kiswahili language. So it's also a good opportunity for Professor to be able to know this.
He starts from Mwalim now. Now, my name is Jenga George. I am a teacher by profession. Head teacher of a school that is using technology in a very unique way. And we want to share with you. I also want to learn something about IQs. I want to appreciate Dr. Stanley for this opportunity, and also appreciate that we can also interact with Martin and Rachel from far and wide. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much, Mwalimu, Mr. George Jenga. We've been having various webinars and Zoom meetings with many students in Kenya through Mr. Jenga. all the high schools now, when people are on this thing, the pandemic, the COVID at home. Mr. Njenga is doing a great job for this country. He's every Saturday, from morning to evening, he's having group of teachers, parents, students. Students are logging into the webinar across the country. High school students is helping them with different issues so that they can be able to be focused to this. So welcome all. And without much ado, I will go direct and share my presentation. Today we are dealing with a great topic. A great topic here. Rachel handled this. My name is Dr. Stanley Karanja. I believe in getting things done. In the next 2 hours and a half hours, we'll be able to make sure that we share knowledge together far and wide. And the participants, feel free, get to the chat box, get the question to the question and answer. Rachel will be helping me to be able to make sure the webinar is successful. So integrating IQ and EQ, very important. Who we are, Rachel have said, from strategy all the way to execution, from envisioning to execution. Our vision, we believe, as Stan Consulting Group, is just being best in people and organization development, because we believe when we help people, then people are within organization, and that's how we contribute to nation building and humanity excellence. So our mission is to develop, to guide, and help you realize your results. Our values are passion. Everything that we do, it's embellished under passion, and passions, of course, emotional intelligence. What we love most doing, we do it very well. Detailed prudence, persistent perseverance, whatever the situation, and with that most professionalism to deliver productivity and profitability for organizations that we interact with, and those that are not can be able to meet their KPIs. Getting things done is our motto. So IQ plus EQ equals to success. That's our key discussion today. I will be able to start with a bit of theory, with a bit of connection, with a lot of practicality, and this is the time we are on. And whenever we get into this, speed is of essence. So you're welcome to be with us as we continue. Good. From the participants, all invited participants, far and wide, key expectations we were able to capture. Why do we talk about emotions in the context of business? So, good question. Why do we talk about emotions in the context of business? So one of the participants asked that. Why in the current professional employment market are merely technical skills not enough to succeed? This is my good friend from Kengen. Charles, thank you. I hope you are in the house. Much appreciation if you have already logged in. Mwalimu Njenga, you'll tell us. You're the people who are in the education system. You've been, you'll need to share with it with the team. Why?
We'll try.
Why? Yes, we will try, and we will help one another. We also have Professor Gibbons who will help us as well with that. Current professional employment market, merely technical skills, not enough success.
Yeah.
Then come to what is the definition of mental intelligence and what type of intelligence. From someone will come up from our great organization NHIF. We'll be able to address that in this webinar. In setting performance targets, what is the best KPI and measures of emotional intelligence? Measures of emotional intelligence. Thank you very much. With that, it's from Madam Julie. Madam Julie. Do you want to build self-confidence? Are you looking to learn how to work, live, and manage your emotions? How will your emotions be able to help you in delivering success in all that you're looking to deliver? If your answer is yes, you're in the right place. What is intelligence? A very good question that was asked. What is intelligence? And hold that one. So what is intelligence? What is intelligence? Intelligence is a hypothetical construct, is the aggregate or global capacity of the individual to act purposefully, to think rationally, and to deal effectively with his environment. Intelligence is a hypothetical construct, is the aggregate or the global capacity of the individual to act purposefully, to think rationally, and to deal effectively with his environment. In intelligence, there are two components: what you can learn in different environments and how you can adapt to that particular environment. We go further to define human intelligence, mental quality that consists of abilities to learn from experience, adapt to new situations, understand and handle abstract concepts, and use knowledge to manipulate one's environment. IQ defines a mental capacity, IQ defines a person's mental capacity and the ability to comprehend and can be measured by IQ test. Emotional intelligence, on the other hand, refers to the individual capacity to establish relationships with the environment by developing a better understanding of his or her own self. What is intelligence? In this discussion, we'll be able to go further. We will be able also to see how many dimensions are there for human intelligence and how many types of human intelligences are there. Intelligence tests are designed to measure a person's problem-solving and reasoning ability. Your IQ score is a measure of fluid and crystallized intelligence. Your score on an IQ test indicates how well you did on this test on mental abilities compared to the other people in your age group. We have the IQ scores, where we have beyond 160 is where we have a genius, 145 to 159 high, 116 to 144 above average, 85 to 115 where most people lie is average, and then we have below average, 720 to 84, and below 70 low. Today we are going to have a discussion on this, IQ. Is it correct to say somebody is low or above average? And I think this I can ask all the participants. Is it fair to use such scores in our endeavors or in our engagements when you ask for somebody's IQ scores? We measure IQ. Should it be a norm to measure people's IQ or to measure self-IQ? I would wish the participants kindly go onto our chat and let's start engaging. Get into the chat and let's start engaging. Kindly share your insights. Is it fair to test people's IQ in any engagement? Well, thank you. I can see great insights. From Joy Odor, thank you so much. It is not fair as there is a lot more than one's IQ. We really appreciate that. From Martin, fellow panelist, will need to be used responsibly. Should you have to use it, then you need to have accepted and better understanding of how to use those scores and interpret them accordingly. And from Laban, I don't think it is fair. Laban, thank you, Laban, from Kenya Investment Authority, makes one feels intimidated. Okay, I think this is a great discussion we shall continue so that to be able to know how should we be able to deal with and what measures should we use wherever we are. Thank you so much, Rachel. Continue giving us this support. So, when we say that most of the people, when we use the normal, the bell curve, the normal curve, and we say most people are between 85 to 114, that's the average intelligence. And then we can say there's people below 70, others profound mental disability. Truly, I can get what we are all talking about. Exactly constitutes genius score on a measure of intelligence. Now, it's good to understand the background of IQ. This thing was done a long time ago by a great French psychologist, Alfred Binet, and he had tried to be able to identify the needs of students in school where they need academic help. Based on research, Binet developed a concept of mental age, children certain age. Yesterday, I also did an IQ test. So I was trying to test, what does it test? And this is where we must be able to understand and appreciate when we are interpreting the IQ scores. Because God created all of us human beings, wonderful. What we need to know is to be able to appreciate what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, very, very important. So, as we continue with this, very important, and that's where we have one of our panelists, Professor Gibbons, Martin, who will be able to share us how to be able to know thyself by doing what is called a profile, by doing what is called personality profiling, to be able to know your strengths, and weaknesses, and be able to know how to work on them appropriately. So, the discussion today is about integrating the IQ and EQ. This builds to the concept of personality. This builds to the concept of knowing who you are. At the end of this program, we will wish our participants to be able to appreciate who they are, their strengths, their weaknesses, and how they can be able to improve. How EQ impacts our day. When we look the main topic of emotional intelligence, we'll be able to see EQ is very important to how we work, how we relate to one another, on our physical health, how we manage our stress levels, and how it impacts on our health, and how we can be able to have emotional intelligence to manage, how to know it, manage, and relieve stress. We shall be able to see the clusters of emotional intelligence in a short while, so that we'll be able to know where do we need to touch to be able to develop ourselves from where we are to the next level. Mental health, ability to understand and manage our emotions, mood swings, prevent us from healthy relationships. This is only when we understand our emotional intelligence. In our relationships, through understanding our emotions, how to control them. How great is this subject, emotional intelligence? So, dimension of human intelligence, when we are discussing about emotional intelligence, is also very important for us to appreciate where does this emotional intelligence lie. A great scholar called Dr. Steve Covey, the late, may his soul rest in peace, who wrote the great books, the book, The Seven Habits of Highly Successful and Effective People, Effective Families, among others, had noted of 4 intelligences, being the physical intelligence, which is the body. How do you handle your body? Then IQ, mental intelligence. How do you handle your mind? Which is also we are going to interrogate further today. Emotional intelligence, matters of the heart, how you love, your passions in life, to yourself and to others. Spiritual intelligence, matters of the soul. In this life, what is this that you're doing that you shall be able to live? Because the reality is we shall all leave this world. What shall you leave behind? And on all this, Dr. Stanley Karanja also looks the importance of today life. There's need of understanding financial intelligence, money, the medium of exchange. We need to understand that because it affects in our variety of investment in physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual intelligence. Among these intelligences, which do you think should be the intelligence number 1? So participants, just write 1, just in the chat box. If you're asked among the 5, 1, which do you believe is the greatest of all intelligence? And I explain a bit, why do you think so? So our participants, thank you very much for joining. As you continue joining, thank you, Dr. Weru, Julie, thank you. Philip, Samuel Kamau, thank you. I will answer your question as we continue, Samuel. So back to the chat box. Share thoughts here. Emotional intelligence, just to draw among the 5 intelligences that we have mentioned. Well, thank you, my fellow panelists. 3 of the most situations relationship defines us, and that is the subject of emotional intelligence. Jodor, thank you. Emotional intelligence helps your balance among the others. Laban, thank you. It has the capability of influencing the rest. Emotional intelligence. That's why it's a great topic today that we are looking at it, and also we are connecting it back to IQ today. So what is emotional intelligence? What is emotional intelligence? I would wish again at this webinar try to answer a bit about what is your understanding by this word emotional intelligence. So just get into your chat box. In these technological times, webinars, it's always good to participate as you are here. Very good for you to participate. What is your understanding by emotional intelligence? So participants, please welcome. Let's get some of your insights, your understanding of what is emotional intelligence. We will continue defining it further and into details. Emotional intelligence is the ability to effectively manage our feelings and relationships. People who have high emotional intelligence are adept at noticing how emotions affect others and understand the motivations behind their actions. Emotional intelligence is measured with IQ, and it's different from, is measured with EQ and is different from IQ. And we'll be able to see how. because an EQ is a measure of understanding multiple aspects, as we shall be going through them and looking at them. And when we talk about emotional intelligence, key word that we need all of us to appreciate is the word emotional intelligence is the ability. So the important word we need to interrogate further is the word ability. What is the ability? It is defined as the power, the capacity to do or act physically, mentally, legally, morally, financially, etc. Ability. And also there's competence in ability, in an activity or occupation because of one skill, how you are trained, and other qualifications. How do you develop competence? And this, again, the importance of IQ on the side of developing of ability, your competence. And we'll be able to see as we grow how we need the relationships competencies. The ability to sing, the ability to choose appropriate words. That's emotional intelligence is a skill necessary for us to master. You can be able to see a photo we have there. Anger displayed on others. Important for us to be able to appreciate this. So, as we look matters of emotional intelligence, it's very, very important to appreciate it in the context of all the other, four: physical intelligence, mental intelligence, financial intelligence, and spiritual intelligence. All this is affected in one way or the other. I'd wish also to request, can we be able to see or explain the difference between emotional intelligence and mental intelligence? Participants, just let's engage on what is your understanding on the difference between mental intelligence and emotional intelligence. So let's go to the chat box. And I'm also expecting to see questions and answers as we continue. The questions that are linked, you're getting, so that we can be able to see how best we can be able to deliver this. Is EQ more important than EQ? When we get one, we continue. Thank you. Relationship with self and others. IQ is about things other than relationships. Thank you so much, Prof. EQ is about relationship with self and others. IQ is about things other than relationships. Is IQ or EQ more important? Which is more important? As we continue, we'll be able to see what's more important in determining life success. And I'd wish us to go simply and participate on the poll. Click where you'll see on your dashboard. Go to the polling. I want us to participate in this poll. I want us to participate in this poll, dear participants. What is more important in determining life success? Is it book smarts or street smarts? And I will be able to explain and also be able to get your thoughts. So we can be able to see 5 people. Okay. Book smart or street smarts? Thank you. Let's participate. Just go to your dashboard. You can see where there's called polling. Just click there. You'll see the question. What is more important in determining life success? Is it street smarts or book smarts? Thank you so much. 38% have voted. Let's continue. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, some 40, 30, continue. Thank you. Thank you for the voting. Thank you. Go to the polling and be able to answer, vote. What is more important in determining life success? Is it book smarts or street smarts? We have people who believe being book smart and those believe being street smart. So, thank you. Go to the polling, go to the polling, go to the polling. We'll be able to have between ourselves what determines our life success. Is it by being book smart or street smart? Thank you. Voting continues. Let's continue voting as voting continues. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. IQ involves quantitative reasoning. EQ entails social communication. Thank you so much, Abigail Njoroge. Thank you. IQ involves quantitative reasoning. EQ entails social communication. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. On our polling, we are doing very well. We are 71% voting. And we can see from majority of us, 60% have said of us are saying street smarts are more important in determining life success. And 36%, okay, 33% keeps changing, believes book smarts determines life success. So let's end the poll there. Then we see our results. Let's see our results. From the results, we are able to see book smarts, 33% of our participants believe book smart. That is, mental intelligence determines one's life. 67% believes emotional intelligence determines one's life. This is a great debate. We will continue looking at it. By and large, both of them are very important. You need to be mentally intelligent, and that's why we go to school. That's why we start education. That's why you are taught A, E, I, O, U, Ba, Be, Bi, Bo, Bu. Mental intelligence, your capacity to think, to conceptualize, is built over time. Then as you grow, you are in a laboratory called the social living laboratory. Our life, our communities, our family, that shape us, our environment. Then this is what we call a street smart. How you become, where you are, your socialization process. As you are young, that's why in life, both are very important. So, this question gets to the heart of important debate contrasting the relative importance of cognitive mental intelligence and emotional intelligence. The proponents of the so-called book smart suggest that our IQ plays a critical in determining how well people fare in life. But also the proponents of street smart suggest that EQ It is. And my take and your take, after continuously learning, we are here where we are because we went to school. We are here where we are because some people took care of us. But that's not enough. What can we continuously excel in? We need to ponder that questions continuously. We need to continuously read because we believe leaders are readers. They continuously read, do a lot of research. Even organization, for you to be a great organization, you need to continuously invest in reading, in research, in development. But as well, you need to continuously be able to be on top of the game, understanding self between a human being or the organization by doing SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and be able to appreciate others and the environment, because we all live in an environment. Understanding the measures of emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman suggested EQs being one of that emotional intelligence quotient. That EQ, emotional intelligence quotient, is more than is actually more important than EQ. But various psychologists, some psychologists believe the standard measure of intelligence, IQ score, was too narrow and do not encompass the full range of human intelligence. And that's why when we asked this in the chat, some said it's not fair to be able to use IQ scores, particularly in employment, in other places. But the most fundamental thing, when you do even an IQ test, is to be able to understand the bases that are being used. There are some that will help you. Others are not maybe relevant to what you are doing as a professional. We even help and advise organizations, and that's where my colleague, Professor Gibbons, will come, who is also a psychologist from Scotland. Will be able to help us to understand the personality, how it's measured, and in simple ways, in simple English, how you get your feedback, so that it can encompass more range than just IQ. In any test that it's done in the world, is to be able to get where the points that we can be able to help and improve issues. So psychologist Howard Gardner, for example, suggests intelligence is not simply a single general ability. So we need to understand the multiplicity of intelligence so that we can be able to appreciate this. And that's where emotional intelligence is very important, particularly for the people within the organization. You went to school, great work was done at the primary school, at the secondary school, at the university level, in colleges. But now when you come to the real world of business, emotional intelligence is what we need to nurture more, is what we need to build so that we can be able to deliver. Because this is where it's about self and others. How do we understand that? So, how is it measured? The IQ, the intelligent quotient. IQ represents abilities such as visual and spatial processing, knowledge of the world, fluid reasoning, working memory and short-term memory, quantitative reasoning, which is also important. So when you need to be able to measure, to have measures in response, particularly in the organization, it is very, very important for you to be able to know from HR perspective, people perspective, learning and development, what job specifications do I want? And we tailor that with my colleague Gibbons on how to be able to get the best measure. Personality testing, management style testing, and be able to see the issues that you need to dwell on. There are places where, even if you're looking at leadership, there's where we need people with blue hat, others with red hat, others with green hat. This is the detailed program that we always offer for 5 days, a training on emotional intelligence. But for this webinar, it's also good to appreciate some of these things that IQ, mental intelligence, it assesses your visual, spatial processing, knowledge of the world, fluid reasoning, quantitative reasoning, working memory, and short. term memory. When we come to EQ, on the other hand, is the measures person's level of emotional intelligence, ability to perceive. In sociology, we used to learn that to be, you by being, is how you perceive the world, how you perceive yourself, how you control, how you evaluate and express emotions. And we look at EQ being centered on identifying emotions, evaluating how others feel, controlling one's emotions, perceiving how others feel, using those emotions to facilitate social communication. And one of our participants said, it's all about social communication. How do I communicate? But also even to yourself, how do you communicate to yourself? And how do we relate to self? And how do we relate to others? So what are the differences between IQ and EQ? The difference between IQ and EQ. I will also wish you to get to the chat box and write the difference between, what do you think is the difference between IQ and EQ? Okay. Thank you, Philip Mukusia. One's IQ should determine once it has been tested in all situations. One may be high in one and low in another. Thank you. IQ receives while EQ controls one's emotions on the other hand. Great. Thank you. Thank you. As we continue chatting, yes, these can certainly vary as they are independent of each other. Yes, thank you. Gibbons, they certainly vary as they are, each is independent. One is in the organs of the body. Where we start, again, with my colleague Gibbons, in the organs of the body, emotional intelligence is in the mind, in the human mind. Emotional intelligence is based in the heart, in the love, the passions, the desires. Emotional intelligence is in the learning and the doing. So, you can see you have another chart, okay. Alice Weru, thank you so much. IQ relates to self, while EQ relates to self and others. Fantastic. I like that one from our participant, Alice Weru, where you're saying IQ relates to self. IQ is selfish. EQ is understanding self for self and others. Fantastic. That's a great contribution. That's a great contribution. I appreciate that. So, emotional intelligence measures the intelligence, the ability to use emotions and cognitive skills. Flexible skills can be learned. That's why we help people, we train people in groups. In your brain, emotional intelligence is also situated in a portion of your brain called the limbic system. When you have an opportunity, you can buy a book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, why it can matter more than IQ. EQ matters more than IQ, Emotional Intelligence, by Daniel Goleman, and who has explained that IQ is situated in a part of the brain called neocortex, or top portion of the brain. The emotional intelligence is situated in the limbic system. In our human interactive system, there's more of IQ in our brain, in our mind. Notice the difference between the brain and the mind, and the thinking. Limbic system. In our hearts, limbic connects to the heart faster and better. Emotional intelligence gets you through life. Intelligent quotient gets you through school. And that's why we have our great panelists to us today, who's very important. We must appreciate the school system, that the school system helps us to shape our intelligence quotient. And then when we come to life, leadership training, human resource practitioners, our immediate supervisors help us to get us through life, through organization, to be able to deliver our vision, our mission, our goals stated. Why is this so that important? IQ was viewed primarily as a primary determinant of success. People with high IQ are assumed to be better in life in accomplishments and achievement. Later, it was realized that high intelligence no guarantees success, particularly the current world, where we go to school, we have very high IQ, but getting into the street, ourselves and others, to be able to discover and be able to see the opportunities. That eye for the opportunity is very critical. And that's why we would also, in our curriculums in schools, it's very, very important to see how emotional intelligence can be part and parcel. It is, but never well defined. It's very, very, it's done, but not understood that it is done, should be planned and be done from school level to the leadership level. IQ is still recognized as the most important element. Whilst that, people with high IQs typically do well in school, often earn more money and tend to be healthy in general. But today, experts recognize there is more than that. That's why many companies are now mandated to have emotional intelligence training so that people, when they meet together at workplaces, they can be able to know themselves and how to relate with one another. We've done this for many organizations. We appreciate them. And it's a journey where we come to organization, the teams, if it's an entire management team, each person to understand self, then understand self and others. And the best measure of emotional intelligence is when it is done, it's done in teams. It's when it is done in teams. We get a team in your organization whereby people can be able to do the emotional intelligence tests, and they're able to help them be able to continue. It can be done during the hiring process, but the most important and the best time is when people have been settled within the organization, is to be helped to be able to understand self. And that's where my colleague, Martin Gibbons from People Maps, the co-founder of People Maps, comes in handy to help us to be able to have the tools appropriate to measure self and manage and how I manage and how I can help to be improved. And also another program that we are working with Martin Gibbons is how within organization, the teams that are working together, various teams, how can they be able to tap their potential together? So research have found that strong leadership potential is from those who have found that individuals with strong leadership potential also tend to be more emotionally intelligent. Thus, that high IQ is an important quality for business leaders and managers. We'll get an example here. One insurance company discovered that EQ could play a vital role in sales success. The sales agents were ranked, those sales agents who are ranked low on emotional intelligence, like issues like empathy, initiative, self-confidence, were found to sell policies with an average premium of 4,000. But interestingly, though on the comparison, those agents who are ranked highly on measures of EQ sold policies worth double of the other colleagues who did not do that. So when you are hiring, again, this is what I said on relevance of job. When you have people in the sales, but now the world today is a selling environment. We are all offering services to others. We need to build our emotional intelligence. Knowing ourselves, controlling ourselves, and sacrificing, giving thyself. So emotional abilities can also influence choices that consumers make when confronted with buying decisions. So it's a great understanding in the current world, and particularly when we have pandemic, we need to understand how to be able to navigate and live with it. So researchers found that people would rather deal with a person that they trust rather than someone that they do not. They rather pay more for an inferior product, but from that person who they connect with. It's the business of connecting with one another. So dimensions of emotional intelligence, you need to know yourself, how empathy you are, feeling others, motivation, self-regulation, and social skills. These, we extrapolate them We break them into pieces in our training that takes 5 days on self-awareness, how to do with empathy, how to do motivation, connecting to the goals of the organization, connecting to the self-goals. Each individual needs to have a vision, mission, values, and goals, and be able to use the necessary tools to be able to achieve this. Self-regulation, how do you manage self after knowing yourself, and the social skills important. But on the cluster of emotional intelligence, which is rather not just a single characteristics, we have what we call as who I am and what do I do with the me. That's self-awareness, who I am. I'm self, who am I? I'm in a community, social awareness. So you need to know itself, you need to know, you have social awareness. Then you need in thyself, how do you manage yourself? Do you have the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods? The propensity to suspend judgment, delaying of gratification, what is many of our people suffering today. People have gotten into the momentum of taking loans, suffering from financial intelligence again, taking loans, investing, having a parity issues, parity pecking order system. You want to compete with others without doing due diligence, not able to delay gratification. That's on self. Self-awareness, know thyself, and control. Social awareness, know how I am and how do I relate with others. That's fantastic on clusters of emotional intelligence. So, to my participants, is there a way that we can help and increase our emotional intelligence? Kindly get to the chat box. Let's look at that. Let's get to the chat box. Share your opinion, please, in the chat box. Is there a way to increase your emotional intelligence? Is there a way to increase your emotional intelligence? Is there a way to increase your emotional intelligence? Go to the chat box. You'll have if you can't find your chat box, go where there's written more, then you can find chats. Then you can find chats. Then you can find.
Chat box is at the foot of your screen.
Go to the chat box. Share your opinion. Is there a way to increase our emotional intelligence? Is there a way? Yes, there was a way to increase our mental intelligence. That's why we go to school. That's why we have the primary education system, we have the secondary, we have the tertiary, we have the universities, and more and more. Now, on issue of emotional intelligence, is there a way that we can increase our emotional intelligence? Thank you, thank you, thank you, Joy. Joy, yes, there is a way. Abigail, thank you so much. Through self-motivation, fantastic. Self-motivate yourself, motivate thyself so that you can be able to understand self and how to relate with others. From the great Greek mythology, they used to say, know thyself, control thyself, and give thyself. That is sacrifice. So from Philip, EQ increases as one goes through life experiences. Thank you. However, in the organization, how do we enhance it? Through life experiences. Do we have a choice of our life experiences? Do we have a choice of our environments? Yes. Thank you very much. Laban, yes. Thank you, Laban, from Kenya Investment Authority, Kenya Investment Authority. Yes, by taking time to understand people through participating in networking, team building, reading and learning. Fantastic. Yes, Betty Mudi from St. Paul's University. Thank you so much, Madam. Welcome. Yes, through life experiences and learning through training like this. Very important for us. Now we help us organization within teams. How do I be able to work together in this particular team? I entered this organization. I did not choose who I will meet. Now I'm there. This is the greatest opportunity whereby Stan Consulting Group with partners and associate consultants, Prof. Gibbons, Mr. Njenga, Rachel, with other associate consultants. We help. Like there's one great program, online testing that we'll be doing for teams. You met yourself in an organization, but you're in a certain team to deliver. We can enhance that. Paris, thank you very much, Paris. Paris, you're saying yes by reading more and practicing to improve weak areas in us. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Self-reflection. Thank you, Madam Julie. Self-reflection. Many at times we do not have a minute even to call ourselves for a self-meeting, meditation. When is the last time you called yourself for a meeting? Purposefully, you have put it in your calendar that this is my day. You do organizational meetings, but do you do self-meeting? Thank you. Great insight from Madam Julie Maluma. It's important for us to be doing self-reflection. And when you want to get feedback from people, whatever the type of feedback you're given, always appreciate, reflect on it. Don't be jumpy to respond. But many times we are jumpy. We want to score. We want to show we weren't. But again, self-reflection. Yes, by reading more, we can increase, yes, Dr. Jen Weru, we can increase our emotional intelligence by studying and understanding other people's emotions and feelings. And this is fantastic, particularly if you're in a team, in an organization. We have many organizations that are failing today because the CEO came from wherever he came from, head of departments came from wherever, they met and they have no formula to work. They enter into organization, they start whipping one another, deliver, but they have never gotten the chemistry of one another. Get to know your strengths, get to know your weakness. And this is a very great program we're working with Gibbons on team dynamics profiling. How are we able to work? And then we get to the areas that we can help people go to the next level. Hassan Daud, thank you so much. Yes, through learning, responding attitude rather than reacting. How do we respond? Fantastic. So we continue that. Yes, Charles Ikahu, thank you so much. Self-evaluation. There's self-reflection, also self-evaluation. Good to check, where am I? Where am I going to? Where am I heading? Do you have a street light in your life? Do you have a red light where it tells you stop, an amber, think, and then go? By practicing patience. Fantastic, Alice. I call it me time. Yes, the meeting with yourself. Put as one of the action points. Get a day, particular day that you'll always be having your me time. Have also, and today technology, internet, this world, we have even songs that help you to meditate. Get there, you'll be able. Just ask for relaxation song, spa relaxation. You'll be able to get some good insights there. And examine how you react to stressful situations. Oh my goodness, you are the team to be with, and we'll be able to develop self and others. And wherever you are, you can be able to impact positively to this life. Because in our spiritual intelligence section, when we are doing the emotional intelligence, we check all the other intelligences. And that's where we are able to be able to, how do you derive a legacy? What's the legacy that you want to live in this life? Life is not just about just living. There are more to this. So as we continue, thank you so much for this increase. There's many ways we can increase our emotional intelligence. This is fantastic, guys. Now on emotional intelligence, we need to understand the side of self, that you need self-awareness. That's knowing thyself, self-regulation, and what motivates you. You must have a motivation. Do you have a culture of stretch-based culture of achieving things? What is your motivation? Do you wait for the disasters to strike? Yeah, personal competency. Then on the other side, we have what we call as social competence, social awareness. Do I know the environment that am I in? Do I know the family that I'm brought up? Do I know what my birth order is? Was I the second born of the family of 2? That's the last born. Was I the second born of the family of 10? What happened to me? And you must appreciate there's great things that happen. And how do we relate to others? And when we come to the measures of emotional intelligence, Madam Julie, you had asked that in the prelude to this webinar. Emotional self-awareness is very important. How do we able to do that? And that's why we do self-evaluation. Accurate self-assessment. You assess yourself. Even try to assess your confidence. But also, there is your colleagues. How do they see you? How do they perceive you? How do they say about your emotional control? Because you are in sociology, we have the greatest psychoanalyst, the Sigmund Freud, among others. They said life is a living laboratory. So you get feedback from others. Trustworthiness. How do you be able to say how trustworthy you are? Because this will also impact on the value many organizations have, and the biggest challenge we have in the world of corruption. So how are we trustworthy? And you can help your colleague by letting them know you're not trustworthy. To me, if 10 people out of 10, 7 tell me I'm not trustworthy, I need to start reflecting back to myself, am I not trustworthy? Conscientiousness, am I adaptable? Am I innovative within the team? Do I have an achievement drive? Or we say our organization will continue. Commitment, initiative, optimism. We have the COVID time. Are we optimistic? Do you have the initiative to persevere and take on this pandemic? How happy are we in relation to others? So emotional intelligence can also get into performance management, whereby we can be able to help our colleagues help ourselves and colleagues to be able to understand where we are and where we are moving, and how to relate to others. How do we understand others? Do we ever develop others? Do we leverage on diversity? When we're talking about tribalism, no. Take that tribalism positively. Get to know this person was brought up in these different situations. They have different learnings. How can they help us to be able to move on? Political awareness. Yeah. Organizational awareness. Do I understand my organization? Service orientation. What's my service orientation? What is my service orientation? Fantastic. How do we communicate? Conflict management. These are the things that we help organizations. We come with the tools for them to be able to know. And that's why we request organizations who are doing performance management, behavioral competencies. How are we able to capture them? The leadership. Are we able to give back honest feedback about the leadership is happening? And that's why Gibbons, we have tools whereby your management style, from autocratic to collaborative, problem solving, building relationship, all these things we can be able to examine in a 5-day session that we have, where we can be able to have tools, look at them, have a plan where we are today and where we are heading in the near future, so that we can become very impactful in this great life. So there are so much we can be able to do. The answer was yes. Some strategies to teach emotional intelligence. Okay, character education, modeling positive behaviors within ourselves. All these are the things we can navigate together and be able to deliver together. So a short story as I sum up to call my fellow great people, my fellow panelists, that one day on a school bus, a 6-year-old student, Martin Moran, gave a toy come on, thank you, brought from home to a boy. This was a special toy to a boy with special needs. He had noticed that no one ever wanted to sit next to the boy, who was often disruptive during the ride. So Martin's plan worked. The distraction helped the other child focus and stay calm, says Martin's mom, Jessica Moran. So it was his idea. Martin's pretty in tune with other kids' emotions and came up with that solution on his own. And when I see this great story, I remember my daughter. There's a time I was from the United States and I had this, I was given a special flag, a United States, very special flag, a very expensive flag, which I was given as a gift by a fella in the US, is my good friend today. When I came back to Kenya with that flag, I really loved that flag. I said it would be on my desk. I'll be remembering my times. My daughter took the flag from home and took the flag to her best teacher. So what do I do? So as we were staying, I said, no. The teacher came and thanked the mother, said, thank you so much for the great gift of a flag that you gave, that the dad of Salome gave a present for me from United States. But what do? You accept and help people to connect. She saw that was the best thing to be able to get from home, from US, and take to the teacher. So what's the learning here from this boy? The story illustrates how his son's high IQ or emotional intelligence. So on matters of relationship and also family, let's give our opportunity to our children when they do these things so that they can be able to relate better. It's a skill set that's been getting a lot of buzz. Some experts and educators say it matters more than IQ. So as we continue with this great debate, I would wish to call my guys, you're there. Thank you so much. Martin, are you ready? Are you ready for this great debate? But before I give to Martin, let me check the chat box so that we can also have Martin, Professor Martin. Martin has written so many books. Martin has written so many books about personality, profiling. We do lots of things with Martin. We help organizations. This is the time we are taking organization head on to help them. How do we live together within teams? People are employed into organization and you don't have control of who you're employed with. We need to understand that team so that it can be able to deliver. We want people to deliver, to be happy in this life and to be able to leave great legacy. So on the chat box, yes, Laban Kero from Kenya Invest Authorities by taking time to understand people through participating. Yes, Betty Mudoi, training like this. Yes, reading more. Self-reflection. Thank you. We were there. Betty, we appreciate this input. Thank you. By reading more and more, increase reading. I say continue reading. Leaders are readers. We have to continue reading. We have to attend training. We have to build one another. I say this, every year I must get into an examination. And a quick one I did last night, I did my EQ test. Well, you call me, we'll share what were my IQ test. Very interesting. So, and that's why I say it does not mean so much, but it's good to understand some key things and how are they connecting to your vision and mission. Do a self-evaluation, practicing patience, examine how we react to stressful situations, talking and working interpersonal relationships by taking positively when criticized. And which is not easy. It's a skill that we need to learn. You need to develop a cohort that you can learn from when you are criticized. People say it's easy to take feedback. We need to develop that competency. Many people keep to themselves, and that's why today in Kenya, 1 out of every 10 people has a mental health problem because people keep to themselves. And maybe when you share, you can be able to get a solution from somebody. You can even discover you're not suffering as so much. How will I be able to get the video recording? Thank you so much, Monica. We are keeping in touch. Thank you, Rachel, for responding to that. Now it's time to welcome my great friend from Scotland. How is Scotland, my friend, my great friend, Professor Gibbons? How is Scotland? Please share some few about, you can see how Kenya looks. You can see Mr. George Jenga is in a beach. He wants to share knowledge Amazing. So let's have Gibbons,
Well,
and then we'll have Jenga. So thank you so much.
okay.
Welcome, participants. Continue sharing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stanley. I found that fascinating this morning. I know you would think I would know more about this, but this is a whole area. I'm very, very narrow specialism, which is in Jungian personality profiling, specifically for understanding self and others, and mostly within a kind of work context. Is really, we don't do clinical on that side of things. So, so everything you were talking about this morning, I thought was really, really interesting. So I found that quite fascinating. And yes, we do have some palm trees in Scotland. We do have some nice beaches. The only trouble is you need to wear a wetsuit to enjoy them because it's so cold most of the year.
Yes.
We don't get to really properly enjoy them. Maybe about 3 days a year if we're lucky, you know. But anyway, so Kumara Hashiv from Scotland, as I say, I'll if you give me over the. How do we do this? I need to get the screen so I can share my screen, and I'll get us on top.
Yes, you are free. You are free. You can share the screen.
I'm free. I can do that.
Yes, you are free. You can share the screen.
Here we go. Here we go. So I'll take you through. As I say, I won't keep you too long this morning. I just want to touch on some key points. Well, I think I would like to start by Rachel. I was totally delighted that you opened up with a quotation from Bruce Lee, which was the most unlikely place I expected to hear a quotation for Bruce Lee, given that I'm a bit of a Bruce Lee fan and studied under the people that taught him. So I studied with Sam Kwok and John Nip Jing, and my own teacher that I taught with most was Paul Smith. And Sam Kwok was actually in Hong Kong in the same class as Bruce Lee in 1970, you know, so so I've got a really big affection over there. So it was a great quotation. I think Bruce Lee is often not understood for being a really good philosopher and like a man of great understanding of people and the human condition. And I think he probably read more about philosophy and psychology than he did even in Kung Fu, and that's not by accident. And the thing I find about Kung Fu, if you like, is that you're very rarely ever going to get into a physical confrontation with someone, but every day you're having to deal emotionally with the world, with a colleague, with a friend, with a family member. So, and that's the element that you probably find your training comes in more useful. And I suppose that also ties into what Dr. Stanley was talking about this morning, which is emotional intelligence. So anyway, here's me with one of my silly Scottish hats on. In a rare blue sky of Scotland. So we started People Maps way back in 2000. So for 20 years, we have essentially been specialising in helping organisations understand themselves, the people in it, and the people that they deal with in the world. So why does personality matter? Why does profiling matter? Well, if I take you through, here's a great example. This happened to me actually once. So I arrived, I took my wife, Julie, and at that time, my wee boy, who was Rory, who was, I don't know, 10 or something at the time, and we went to Paris for a weekend, staying at a friend's house. And we arrived in Paris, not really been that much before, and Paris is a huge city. And of course, the first thing you do when you come out of the train is you find one of these maps, you know, which is the city street guide map. And so it's got all, you're looking at the map and you're looking, and then you realise what was missing on this map was this red button that tells you, you are here. And because of that, the map was utterly useless. I couldn't use it because unless I knew where I was, it was impossible. Even if I could see where I wanted to go, I simply couldn't get there because I didn't know where I was leaving from in order to get there. And this is a reasonably good analogy of personality and understanding, and why understanding self is so important. Because if you don't know that you are here in your own life, then it's very difficult to make much progress. So that's largely, I suppose that's one picture you could keep in mind when you're thinking about personality. Probably a few myths that I will dispel as well this morning. I say I really won't keep you too long. So a couple of things you should know. Your personality type, of course, is unique to you. And what may surprise you is that in terms of personality, your personality type, it remains largely unchanged across your lifetime. You literally arrive on the planet with your personality intact. And if you want to see some evidence of this, really you don't need to look much further than any twins. If you've ever came across any twins, then you will realize, and if you speak to any parents or people who have twins, they will pretty much tell you this is how it happened. In fact, I met a lady once who had two young children. One of them was running about the coffee shop like crazy, and the other one was sitting at her feet the whole time, drawing quietly. And she was telling me that the doctors kept rushing her in to hospital because they were really concerned about the twins, mainly because one of them was doing all the kicking as they expected, and the other one wasn't doing anything. And she says, I knew there was no problem. I knew it was all fine. And then what happened? She had the two twins, and clearly you could see the one that was always running about, well, that was the one that was kicking all the time in the room. And the one that was quite contented, he says he's really smart, he's quite happy with his own company, doesn't need to run about. And that was him, and he was like that in the room. So even before birth, there's a case and an argument and anecdotes to essentially explain that your personality is already here. And again, unlike many other things, it's entirely yours. It's not down to, it doesn't matter what your parents are. Your parents could have two very different personalities, and you will end up with some random version of your own personality type. And I said that makes life really challenging for some parents, because it's sometimes your child can be very different from how you are or how your wife or your husband is. And therefore it makes it very complicated to understand sometimes. So, and personality can be quite perplexing, and part of our job at Peel Maps is really to help simplify that, use some powerful tools so that we can actually understand it, and then more importantly, do something very valuable with it. So what I'd like to do, as I'm going to talk, I'll continue talking, but if you want to go to the chat, what I would encourage you to do, if you would like to enter, is, and the panelists are welcome to do so too, is enter anything, just one word answers for anything that you think is personality centric, i.e. it's determined and influenced strongly by your personality. So if you have a favourite, something that you think, yeah, this is definitely a personality issue, then you can put that in the list. So if you want to start putting some of those things in, we'll have a wee look at those later on, and take your time to do that. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to start with is the first law of personality. Now, there are 12 laws of personality. We won't go over all of them today. I'm just going to mention a couple. But this really answers the question as to why personality matters. And the first law of personality states that everything that we say, think, and do is affected by our personality. Every decision that we make is affected by our personality. And when you sit with that concept for a minute, then you realize just how much your personality is affecting everything that you do throughout the day, and therefore throughout your life. And most people are rather oblivious as to what is going on there, or even that is going on. So if you don't know how your personality may be affecting you on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, then clearly you're at a disadvantage in the world, especially over someone who actually does understand how their personality is affecting how they are operating on a daily basis. Now, a couple of things I really need to point out here, because this is where a lot of people get very confused and sometimes even upset when it comes to personality. And we're not here to upset anybody. If you can separate out the concepts of personality, your personality type, and your behavior, then all of this starts to make a lot more sense. And the simple difference is that you can modify your behavior from 1 minute to the next, and you have 100% control over your behavior. You can always choose exactly how you want to behave. However, that is separate from your personality type. So your personality type is set in stone for your life, doesn't really change. All it really changes probably your understanding of it, to be honest, but it doesn't change across your life. But of course, what does change is your ability to modify and control your behavior. So when you separate those two out, now clearly your personality also determines and affects your natural preferred behavior. It affects mainly two things. We would divide them into two: your natural preferred behavior. So if there's no environmental pressure on you, if there's nothing forcing you to do something, how would you normally behave? That would be your natural preferred behavior. And you also have your natural preferred environments. So those ones that are no challenge to you at all, the kind of place that you would naturally feel very comfortable in, again, providing there's no environmental pressure or external motivation to have to do so. So let's separate out those two, behavior and personality, and everything else starts to make a lot more sense. This is the People Maps personality map, and it's just a sort of random island, if you like. So People Maps is a little unusual. We don't use labels. And I know that if you have any familiarity with personality, then you're probably expecting a label. You're one of these or you're one of those. Well, People Maps doesn't do that. And that's really because Carl Jung, who's sort of the father of personality profiling, who wrote the book in 1924, really, he didn't believe in labels, and he felt it was very important that we respected the fact that you are unique in your personality. Your personality is unique to you. However, what we can say is that you will have an awful lot in common with certain people and you'll be nothing like other people. And this is what the map largely represents. So it's a spectrum, and everybody is on the map somewhere. Now, we won't go into the map today in any detail as regards what it is and what it means and how it works. But it's simply to let you see that everybody is somewhere on the personality spectrum. And this map kind of illustrates this. So in this example here, we've got 5 people, and they're all somewhere on this map. Now, if this was an organization, this might be your company, it might be your board, or your management team, or it might be a team of workers. It could even be your family, any kind of combination. And what the map can give you, one of the things it can give you is the thing that Dr. Stanley mentioned earlier on there, is a team dynamic. So you can look at this and understand the overall big picture, the bird's eye view of what you have in terms of personality assets in any given team. So in this one here, we can see that there's a representation in the northeast. There's actually a couple of people. There's Bob up in the north in the mountains. We've got northwest. But what you can also see in this team is there's nobody in the southwest. So with our understanding of team dynamics, we can actually look at that. And if this was a client that came to me, then already there would be red flags coming up for me, and I would be looking at anticipating some serious problems because I see where the gaps are. And with those gaps, there's certain types of problem are likely to arise for that team. And that would be one of the things that we would address and try and compensate for, or either add someone else to the team or make sure that they were aware of what is likely to happen because of this gap and do something about it. The other issue I see on this team, for instance, is actually because we've got 2 people, Brian and Sue, up here on the right-hand side. Again, that would be a red flag for me. And I would be concerned about a little bit of infighting, which we would definitely see up here on the right-hand side. Now, that wouldn't be the case if you saw 2 people over here, but say Anne and I had somebody else, a colleague down beside Anne. I wouldn't be so concerned about that. But over here in this northeast area, that would give me concern. So that's a very quick insight into the map, and saying you as an individual will be somewhere on that map. Okay, just a couple of quotations, just some stuff from some of the books that I have written and we have out there. But sometimes these can actually help, and it's really this, that we cannot expect to understand others if we do not fully understand self. So we've heard this morning a lot about relationships, the ability to communicate with other people, get on with other people, understand other people. And really that all has to start with an understanding of self. this relationship, right? So this is really what we're talking about here in general terms, is relationships. But the first and most important relationship you have in your whole life is actually the relationship you have with self. And if that relationship isn't good, or it's misunderstood, or you think it's one thing when it's actually another, then it's going to be pretty much impossible to have a better relationship with anyone else, whether that's a significant partner, or whether it's someone at work, or your boss, or your subordinates. And therefore, this is where you need to really start. And it's actually pretty straightforward to do. You know, it is absolutely possible. And but this kind of stresses just how important you start to see the significance, the impact of that on your rest of your life. Okay, so now, as we were talking about emotional intelligence today, I thought it was also worth mentioning, I'm really looking forward to hearing George's contribution to this morning's workshop. But learning style, and I'm not sure if you're, I'm not seeing the notes yet, sorry Rachel, I'm not sure how to do that, but it's okay, I don't really need them just now, but I thought it was worth mentioning that your learning style, how you approach learning anything, is actually also influenced by your personality type. So whether you're prefer to be hands-on and a kinesthetic type learner, that will not be completely, but it certainly will be influenced by your personality. So different personality types have also preferred ways of learning things. So again, we'll probably hear more about that when George is talking, I imagine, today. I'm looking forward to that. Other things I did want to talk about then was a couple of things that was mentioned by Dr. Stanley, and I'm just going to kind of come away from my slides a little bit in a second to talk on some of these other notes, but other aspects of your life that are personality centric. So if you've been adding to the notes or making some guess, your preferred environments, and this includes work environments. So you as a person have a natural preferred environment. And when I work with employers, and we literally work with thousands of employers worldwide, I think at the last count, People Maps had been used in 93 countries. We have people, many different languages have used it. And I think we're at 1.5 million people have actually completed a People Maps questionnaire and assessment. But one of the things I say to most of those employers that we're working with is that whatever work environment you have, there'll be certain personality types who can thrive in that environment and cope with it really well. And the majority of personality types will always struggle with that environment. And that has nothing to do with intelligence, education, skills, or qualifications. None of that is affecting or determining that. This is purely a personality compatibility with the environment and the individual. So again, understanding the individual is the starting point to that, and also understanding what that actual environment is. And again, I think many employers are not really thought about that. But from your own experience as an employer or even as an employee, you will recognize this, what I'm saying here, you will have experienced. So some person comes into a job and absolutely it's their ideal job, they thrive, they do well, everybody loves it, they love them, and they leave for whatever reason, and somebody else comes in, equally qualified, equally competent, able to do the job, and it just doesn't work. And it's usually because the personality is quite different, even though they might have the same qualifications or skill set, but the personality is different, and that environment is actually a little toxic for them. They just don't seem to be able to adjust. So this goes on a daily basis with organizations, and it's what we're always trying to see through and understand. Now, the other thing that was mentioned, I'll come away from my slides a little here just to touch on a couple of things that Dr. Stanley talked about. The emotion side of things, again, emotional intelligence we're talking about, well, of course, your personality is absolutely going to feed into the types of emotions that are prevalent with you. And there's another saying that we have, I think it's actually one of the 12 laws as well, is that humans are fundamentally, we are emotional creatures that look for logic to justify the emotional decisions that we make. So even those most logical of us, and some of us appear extremely logical and unemotional as a personality type, but even those people, those sometimes referred to as like Spock-like characters, you know, from Star Trek, you can tell I'm a bit of a geek, but those Spock-like characters, even those people that we know, are still actually primarily making emotional decisions. And what we tend to do is we make an emotional decision and then we look for the logic to actually support that emotional decision. That tends to be how humans operate. So you can never escape from the emotion, and therefore Dr. Stanley's absolutely right here. If we don't understand and take a firm hold of our emotional intelligence and develop that skill, then we really are at the mercy of some pretty big waves, to be honest, and we need to work past that. Now, here's a question for you. If you've entered anything on the notes there, I can't see them yet, but that's okay. Tell me about confidence. Now, again, we talked about this earlier on today. Is confidence a personality issue? Are some personality types more confident than others? And we'll come back to this in a wee second, so let me leave that with you. I thought another key point that was mentioned today was, it was a quotation, and I can't remember who made the quotation, but you put it as a quotation, and essentially it was, if I paraphrase it, it was about the intelligence, essentially emotional intelligence was about how you deal with the environment. And I thought that's actually really spot on, because when you consider that your personality is largely, you therefore have preferred environments and you have preferred behaviours, but in that preferred environment, so if you understand what your preferred environments are, then you can actually make choices in your life that ensure that you find yourself more in those types of environments and less in an environment that would always be somewhat toxic to you. So again, you can make those choices if you understand what they are. So again, I thought it was a very nice and a very powerful quote. One other thing I would like to mention here is, and it's very commonly associated with personality, is this whole concept of strengths and weaknesses. Now, clearly, from a personality perspective, there are some things that come naturally to you, that come very easily to you, and there are some things that you will always struggle with. And mostly these are what we refer to as strengths and weaknesses. And I would say that's okay, except with one significant caveat. And that caveat would be, a strength is only a strength if the environment demands it. So for instance, I'm quite rubbish at juggling, although I have practiced and I can juggle 3 balls, but not for very long. Now, is that a strength or a weakness? Well, if you can't juggle very well, you might say that's a weakness. However, if my environment does not require me to juggle, and I ensure that I put myself in situations that do not require me to juggle, then it's somewhat irrelevant. I have applied mitigation, and therefore it is no longer a weakness because it's somewhat irrelevant. Another situation would be something like attention to detail. Now, that is a personality issue. Some people are naturally good at taking care of the details, and some of us are not. And unfortunately, I fall into that latter category, which means when I have to deal with details, I have to work and concentrate and try a lot harder than someone who is naturally detailed. Now, can I be detailed? Yes, of course I can. However, it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of concentration. I have to check my work 5 times, whereas someone who is naturally detailed just gets it right first time, and it doesn't exhaust them and it doesn't tire them out, and they can be detailed and they're very comfortable and very happy doing that, whereas for me it's a real effort. I think the last time I did this, I calculated I can be detailed for about 40 minutes. Once we go past 40 minutes, I start to lose it, and my work really drops off big time. So that's another example of how that works. So again, strengths and weaknesses are very real for us. However, they're also circumstantial, and we can have some control over the circumstances. Another ridiculous example I'll give you would be enthusiasm. we would probably all say that being enthusiastic is a strength. And I would say, yes, that's probably true in many situations. However, what if the job was for an undertaker? Would you really want to encounter an enthusiastic undertaker? There are certain situations in life when what you really want is somber. You want someone who is contained and controlled and is not going to overwhelm you with their enthusiasm. And that might be one of those situations. So again, circumstances also have, the context is important. And the result of all that, and the reason I mention all that, is that we've done all sorts of research. We have very large databases. We've had feedback from literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of people over the years where we've asked these types of questions. And the last time, I think the last number we got to was 58% of people pretty much reckoned they were in the wrong job, i.e. in a job that was incompatible with their core personality. 58%. Now that's a significant number, and I'm not exactly sure whose fault it is. I don't blame employers, I don't blame the individual. I think we all have a contribution to that issue. But you can see that that has a knock-on effect in the effectiveness of these organisations. If more than half your people are probably not quite the right fit, then that is going to impact on the overall performance as things go forward. So again, we work a lot with, in one hand, and certainly in the early days, we worked an awful lot with people, the individuals who were looking to put themselves in the right job. Mostly these days, we work with the organisations at the other side to make sure that they are either setting up teams or they're recruiting people who are also a better fit and in the right place. And sometimes it's a small adjustment to an environment that can make all the difference as well. And that's the type of stuff that we work with. So we try and keep people out of a toxic situation, which is, nobody intended it to be that way. It's usually just because people don't understand or see the significance of what's going on. Which brings me to law number 8. I said there was 12 laws, and I said we're not doing them all, but law number 8, which basically states that there are some things that comes to us naturally, and when our environment requires these, we consider these to be strengths. And the final thing I would like to, and I think this will tie into what Dr. Stanley was saying, and I suspect also what George is going to say, and again, I'm looking forward to what George is going to say about this, but I would also argue that our natural strengths have no limits. So we tend to do a lot of work, you know, in the world of personal development, and I would say I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always working on my own personal development. We tend to spend a lot of energy on looking at developing our weaknesses. So we find something we're not good at and we try and improve it. And that's okay, you know, it's not, that's a bad thing in itself. But I would argue that even if we try really hard, we'll probably move from being naturally bad at something, and if we try really hard, we might move it into mediocre. So for instance, my attention to detail. If I try really, really hard, I can never be naturally detailed, but I can maybe move into the mediocre range of, well, I'm not as terrible at details as I was last month. However, if you have something that you're naturally good at, that is a natural strength, and you spend some time developing that, then it really has no limits. It's those natural strengths that you can take up to an exceptional level. And ultimately, that's where you want to be operating at most of the time. You want to be working to your natural strengths, and you want to be developing them so that you move into an exceptional level, whether that's at work or whether it's in your relationships or your family, wherever you see that. But the secret here is not to get, you know, try and get a lot better at anything that's a weakness, because they're always going to be there. It's the developing of what already comes pretty easily to you, but taking that much, much higher. And if you look at the world and the people who are most highly rewarded for what they do, they're not brilliant at everything, but they're exceptional at something. And they get to, you know, the world appreciates them for what that is. And that's usually the secret to some things. Okay, so we talked about preferred behaviours, and I say some of you may have added to the list. So one of the ones we touched on today was you'll probably have a preference. So if your personality type, whatever it is, will probably have a preference for detail, So you take care and you're good at the details. Or on the other side of that spectrum is you maybe be a big picture thinker. Okay, so I fall more into that second category. What you tend to find is that most personality issues tend to be a little bit yin-yang, if I come back to the earlier Kung Fu analogy. So if you're really strong on one thing, there'll be a corresponding something else that clearly you're not going to be scoring so high on. So these are a couple of simple examples. So if you're really good at details, then you're not going to be so good with the big thinking, the big picture. That's not where you're comfortable, and vice versa. Another example would be fast moving. This is an environment example. So if you like an environment that is really fast moving, where you're boom, go, 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 change, 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 and it's really dynamic, or you may prefer an environment where you get time to think, you get to digest the information, you're not having to answer everything on the spot. Somebody asks you a question, you go, okay, I will think on that, I will prepare my thoughts and prepare an answer, and I'll come back with my detailed response to that. So again, those are two ends of a spectrum, and what we can do at People Maps is we can measure essentially how people sit on each of these. So currently, I think we measure 130 different behaviours in environmental situations. We score basically from 0 to 100. And that helps you as an individual or as a manager looking at your own staff. It helps you understand where people are naturally strong and where they may need support, or where you may need training, or where you actually may need mitigation, where you go, look, there's no point trying to get this person to deal with all this detailed work. It's clearly not their thing. Let's give them something where they can actually work with the bigger picture, you know, and move them into something that's everybody's going to benefit from. Another wee quotation from one of the ebooks, which basically this is that the knowledge of self is the pedal that lets us rev the engine of life. So again, if you don't understand self, then you just don't have an accelerator pedal. You can't go anywhere. You're kind of stuck in neutral, sitting at the traffic lights, going nowhere fast. It's as significant as that. But however, every time you develop a little more understanding of self and your own self-awareness, and I do believe that awareness is half the solution to many of our problems. You know, once I understood that actually detail's not really my thing, and by the way, that I was in my late 20s before I realized that, which was a long time after I had put myself through my first degree was in applied physics, and there was never a squarer peg in a rounder hole. It was just, and I never really understood that it was how bad it was until I actually understood my personality and realized I had been forcing things when I didn't need to. And once I understood that, that awareness alone allowed me to improve things significantly, and I say, hit that accelerator pedal on the engine of life. So as I said, there at People Maps, we have 130 personality gauges, and we add to this all the time. And instead of giving you one great big, you're one of these or one of those, we found that wasn't very helpful. But what is helpful is if you understand something more specific. So in this example here, this is something we use with every manager that we'd ever worked with, and it's to try and get a feeling for where they sit on that spectrum. Are you an authoritarian management style, or do you prefer a collaborative management style? And you can see here, this is a very simple and clear example where naturally, if you score high for one of these, you're going to score low for the other. Now, nobody scores 0 because you can all draw a little bit of that. You can see your preferences, and many managers actually have similar scores for both. So they're neither strongly one or the other, and they can probably draw upon either. But this allows you to understand where you sit naturally. Now, there's no right or wrong way when it comes to this. It's not like, well, we don't want this or that's wrong. It's very much, again, circumstantial. The clear thing is to understand it. So if you understand, okay, right, 97, this is clearly someone who has a strong authoritarian management style, well, that's okay. They need to understand that, they need to own it, and they need to be true to it. Whereas if they try and behave in a collaborative way, if they try and emulate a manager who's very different, who's maybe collaborative, then it'll get very confusing and they'll be very ineffective as a manager. Also, if you know that you're strongly authoritarian, you'll probably also then go, right, at times I probably need to soften up, at times I probably need to ease back a little bit and not, you know, bulldoze everything through. Maybe sometimes I need to let other people win sometimes and go a little bit more easy. And again, the awareness helps the manager understand and do that. Which brings us on to another wee quotation. I say that the understanding of self is the bedrock upon which sits our personal development. So again, you, like me, are probably personally always trying to look at how you develop, how you move ahead, how you add to your contribution in the world, and you know, whether it's at work or in family or whatever. And therefore, but this understanding of self, that's the solid base, because it doesn't change. That's the wonderful thing about personality. It is solid, it doesn't change. So if you know where the solid rock is, then you can build your pillars on that solid rock, and you won't be building on sand. And this is where this understanding of self. So again, it's just another one of those useful sayings that can help you, you know, see the perspective of personality. Which brings us to law number 2. I think I'm nearly finished. I'll be wrapping up shortly. I've got a few more wee things to say. But law number 2 is that personality is perfect. And this is a little bit of good news for everybody, because I think most people do worry, what is my personality? Oh, I hope I've got the right personality. Oh no. But I have to reassure you that whatever your personality type is, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It was born perfect. And it's neither good nor bad. And it just is. That's the nature of personality. And there's no one personality type better than any other. And again, this is a little bit counterintuitive, and you know, in a personal development world, which I say I wholly subscribe to. And again, remember, it comes back to my opening statements. When you understand the difference between personality and behavior, so I modify my behavior all the time. I choose my behavior every minute, and sometimes I adapt it when I really have to adapt it to the situation. But that's not me changing my personality, because my personality was perfect to begin with. And I think from a personal development point of view, that's really important. We come back to that question I think I asked earlier on, which was about confidence. Is confidence a personality issue? And it may surprise you to know that actually it's not. There is no one personality type more confident, born more confident than any other. Confidence is one of those things that we either gain or lose throughout our lifetime, and it's usually affected more by our experience than our personality type. What is true is that some personality types appear more confident on the outside, but that isn't necessarily the case. The other myth that kind of corresponds with that, that's probably worth dispelling at this point, is to do with shyness. So if people assume that some personality types are more shy than others, again, that's not quite accurate. So people in the Northwest, for instance, they might appear shy, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, they're just reticent to share their opinions. That's a very different situation, but to some people on the outside, we're looking at that, they would experience it as shy, but that's not necessarily what's going on. And we can see confident people throughout the personality spectrum, and similar people who are struggling with confidence, we also see that anywhere. So that is one of the issues. It's not strictly speaking personality. Okay, so I think I more or less want to wrap up. A couple of things I want to touch on just to finalize. It was more stuff that Dr. Stanley you raised. One of them was stress. Okay, and we do live in a society, especially work, but outside of that, I think you quoted the figure of 1 in 10 people are stressed. The most shocking figure I heard recently in the UK, and it was a UK figure, was that 25% of teenage girls in the UK, 25% have been clinically diagnosed with stress. And I think that's 1 in 4. That's a horrendous figure. And again, so where does stress come into it? Well, in a work situation, in the environment, we would see when you find a mismatch between the environment and the individual's personality, then you tend to find it a stressful situation. And this is why one person's job might be exciting and fantastic and fun and they love it. And then somebody else takes the same job and it's a nightmare job. And nothing's really changed. The environment's still the same boss, the same situation, but the personality is different. So what is a nightmare for one person is an absolute thrill and exciting and delightful to the next person. And that's mostly to do with personality. And I say, so stress tends to be when you get mismatch going on here. And I say we can overcome that. I think that really is. There was only two other statements that were made in the notes, and I'll finish with those two. One was about criticism, and one was about people who keep to themselves. And I'll just finish on this. So the criticism one, in one of our reports, we call it, we have a report like a manager guide, and it's there to help managers manage their staff by understanding them, and including even if you have to reprimand them. And it would explain what will happen how this person will respond to a reprimand or a criticism. And again, how we respond to that is largely determined by our personality. So some people will take the huff, some people will be fine with it, some people will push back. But if you don't understand what that natural reaction is going to be, then you could interpret that entirely wrongly as a manager. And again, so the personality is really important to understand that. And again, those other people that do keep to self, it's more than likely a personality issue. And if you have a very different personality, if you're on that east of that map, for instance, and you're very outgoing, and you come across someone who isn't, then not understanding that can make that quite difficult and challenging for you. But again, the understanding of personality would help make that really quite easy, and you'd be able to overcome and deal with that pretty effortlessly once you understand the components and what is actually going on. Okay, so I think I have finished up for us now. I can hand back to you, Dr. Stanley, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Maybe before you leave, you could answer one question. Someone has a question, is asking, one of my unique personality is I am careful about who I let in my life. Is it a weakness or a strength?
Okay, well, that's a really good one. One of our things that we measure is whether you can you trust, and can you trust too much. I was just discussing this with an actual client yesterday. When is trusting good and when is trusting not good? And again, it is circumstantial. So some personality types are much more cautious about who they let into their circle of, in life. So they're more cautious by nature about who they are. They make, consciously make fewer friends and take their time about that. That's perfectly fine. That is a personality issue. It's neither good nor bad. Again, I think it is circumstantial. Sometimes, for me, I'm probably wide open for anybody who's going to try and con me and take advantage of me, because my nature is much more one of openness and quite gregarious, and I bring people into my circle very quickly, but it leaves me vulnerable to anybody who would abuse that. And over the years, of course, I've had to learn that. You get a few sore knocks and you realise, okay, I'd probably better be more careful going forward in the future. But again, the awareness of that actually prepares you, so I tend to move a little slower than my instinct is, because I know that I'm vulnerable in that situation. So I just try and, I'll have 3 or 4 meetings about something instead of one before I commit to something. Again, it's just me putting in some strategies to manage my own natural state, which might be one of too much trust, too quickly, open, vulnerable, and open to abuse. Does that answer the question? I might have wandered off it.
Yes, thank you so much, Martin, because I think it has answered 2 questions. One question from Laban and the other one from Hassan. Rachel asked the question which was from Hassan, which also Laban had asked, is trusting too easily. So I think those two have combined, and then we also appreciate a contribution of Dr. January. A contribution. It's clear that personalities do not change, especially when one reaches age of 15. His personality is already formed. So then, the role of IQ is to nurture personalities, not to change them.
Yeah, so we would argue your personality is pretty much formed when you arrive on the planet, i.e. at birth. And this is quite, don't get me wrong, this is quite controversial. People would have other opinions on this. But I think what makes it more sense to people is when you separate out your personality from your behaviour. So I'm a great believer in you choose how you're behaving right now. You know, that's a choice. I can choose to respond angrily to a situation, or I can choose to keep quiet and not get roused. You know, that is a choice. Sometimes it's a very difficult choice, don't get me wrong. Again, going back to the Bruce Lee thing, you know, when he was talking about confrontation and fighting, his concept of that was actually, when someone's attacking me, what my job is to actually make something that's incomplete whole. So he never saw it as a confrontation, he saw it as something that lacked completion. And I think that was another decent analogy. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martin. I really like, we will share with the team also the presentation of Martin and his great sharing. Thank you so much, Martin. Professor Martin Gibbons, thank you so much. So we are dear participants. Again, I'm sorry, it's 12:34. Let's give 6 minutes to Mwalimu Njenga to tell us the great work they do in modeling things about mental intelligence, because that's where teachers are. That's where teachers are. They do a lot of great things to make sure that our IQ, is it our IQ? Me, I believe my responsibility in this world, I'm handling more of EQ and leadership. So thank you, Mr. Njenga. Welcome on board.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. It has been a very wonderful time. And I want to take 5 to 10 minutes, God willing, because I know right now we are one of the most sought after institutions in Kenya because the learners are at home. Are you getting me?
Yes,
Yes, we are.
yes.
Right, because now with students at home, you now know who are teachers, and now you can bear with me and sacrifice a bit of your 10 minutes to get to know about our youngsters at home. I'm happy for this team. It's a wonderful team, Dr. Karanja and Professor Martin. Dr. Karanja is where I'm standing now, and Professor Martin is where I want to be. In the next few years, I want to become a professor after becoming a doctor. So you are in a staircase that I want to step on. My name is Jenga George. I'm also the Kesha ambassador. In Kenya is a body for principals of Kenya. I happen to be a trainer for on TPAD. Also, I train stewardship in the church, and I'm training students on something we are calling SPAD, Students Performance Appraisal and Development. For the TPAD is for the teachers, which was initiated by our employer, the TSC. It was received very negatively by teachers, and I was gifted into understanding what it means. I'm also in the church, training on tithing and stewardship. This is a statement that covers the issue of IQ in schools. Great teachers engineer learning experiences that put students in the driver's seat and then they get out of the way. Without the proper IQ and you get out of the way, how will the class be? So the role of the school in the IQ development, one, we are the one who try to initiate an application of daily life to become a manager where you are and a workforce. The foundation is leading school. For them to be on their own, the level of IQ development determines how the students will manage the steering wheel in the absence of the teacher, equally in the absence of the parents. Can parents help in developing IQ for the students? We need to find out whether parents have a role to play. What about the personality? You could be in the wrong job, as was said by a professor, but again, what about being in the wrong school? The stress is unbearable. when the wrong school or the wrong job. You are to be pushed like a donkey to do the obvious things. So effect of this IQ in students, one, now there is an academic breakdown, lockdown now going on. How are these kids faring at home? The effect of suicidal tendencies, when the EQ is low, there is suicidal tendencies. Every small problem at home, the child says, I'll take the rat poison because there is stress. Poor management. Now we have the exploded social media. Now schools are in the mobile phones. Initially we were smashing. I don't know how Professor do in your state. In Kenya, we used to smash telephones when you find them with the students at the parade or dip them in water. Now we must approach. Things have changed. I like this statement. The knowledge of self is the pedal that helps us rev the engine of life. That's a wonderful. I'll never forget that. This is coming up with when the emotional intelligence is quite low and there's pressure to perform in schools, bipolar disorder sets in. Already there's quite a number of this in workplace, where the workers have target they cannot meet and they are not prepared, they are not trained. So there is the mania symptoms, the depression, because the performance is not matching with your ability to your emotional intelligence. So when we are placing workers in our institutions, in our companies, understand the emotional intelligence. We subdivide into three. One, the IQ, that is intelligent quotient, and then we have the emotional one, and you shall see how it defines success. The emotional intelligence, the social quotient, the SQ. Now there's the fourth paradigm, the AQ. In a nutshell, we'll see how all these four are related. One, the IQ, as has been by Dr. It helps us to know the books. I would say this one helps you to get certificates, to memorize, Basically, it gets certificates. Number two, the emotional part of it now, it tells you, gets the promotion, gets the job. How you relate with your how you manage your emotions, how you understand, how you look at positive things from a stress situation. Then for the emotional intelligence, the EQ, this is what makes someone be able to maintain peace with others. In the workplace, somebody is always troublesome, needing intervention measures, conflicts because of the low EQ. Are they responsible? Are they honest? Respect the boundaries? Are they humble? Are they genuine? Are they considerate? The staff members. The student the same. In the social quotient, it's about networking, building network, building friends, the welfare in the workplace. How is it managed? How do people fit in a welfare? That is how they can network. People who have higher EQ and SQ tend to go further in life than those with higher IQ, but low EQ and SQ. The part of intelligence and the part of how you live with other people, most schools capitalize on improving the IQ level, while EQ and SQ are played down. This has been the game of the mean score. And I know your parents, 90% of your parents, you have been paying tuition to get a high grade. But when you get this child at the campus, are they able to sustain the pressure of life, or the A they got? You did not, you suppressed the EQ and SQ and you had the IQ. How can life be? A man of high IQ can help build up employed by a man of high EQ and SQ, though they have the average IQ. So debate for another day. Your IQ represents your character. Your SQ represents your fame. Give habits that will improve these three IQs more, but more especially your EQ and SQ. EQ and SQ make one manager or become a manager better than the other one. Now the fourth paradigm, which is about now adversity quotient, AQ, that is now being propagated in the system, that makes people go through a rough punch in life, come out without losing their centers. We all go through crises in a workplace. No workplace is perfect. We don't change jobs to get a better manager. No, you get a worse one. But with a low AQ, you change jobs or you quit because of small things you can manage. AQ determines how you will give up in the face of trouble, how you can abandon or quit your family responsibility or consider suicide. Professor Papet talked about artificial intelligence. This professor was moving an idea that looked unattainable in 1960s on ICT and how learners would use it to develop their IQ. In 2020, we are somehow in the basics, and I must thank the coronavirus for speeding up the ICT integration in schools. I'm training principals and teachers. Dr. Karaja says 90% of principals do not know how to use a Zoom. I was training them how to Zoom in a meeting. Why? Because of misplaced priorities. So with a mind of extraordinary range and creativity, Seymour Papert helped evolutionize the these three fields. So this gentleman talked about how we can develop artificial intelligence by use of ICT in schools. In 1960, it was taken like a big joke, and today it becomes a reality. Now, there are 4 pillars of emotional intelligence. 1, self-awareness. Emotional awareness, ability to know yourself, understand your feelings, either a student or a worker. Number 2, accurate assessment. How do you assess and understand your strength, your weakness? The other one is self-confidence. If you cannot manage in an audience and be able to self-explain yourself to your management, then you have a challenge of that pillar. Pillar number 2, self-management. How do you manage yourself? Self-control, importance of emotional maturity, achievement. Are you goal-oriented? Do you set targets, or you just hit anything and you celebrate what you have achieved without saying what you wanted? How do you initiate from a setback point of view? Transparency, adaptability, and how optimistic you can be. That is number 2 pillar on EQ. Number 3, social awareness. Dr. Karaja covered this very well. I'm just doing a summary. He's covered very well. The empathy, how you feel for the others. Service orientation. How do you interact? How do you listen to others people's problem? Finally, it's about organizational awareness, ability to explain yourself. That was pillar number 3. Pillar number 4, relationship management, inspirational leadership, influence, conflict management, change catalyst, developing others, teamwork and collaboration. Even in a school situation within our labs, I'm developing a study on student performance appraisal, and I am determined to make our students occupy the diverse seat. Without getting a chance to express yourself, you may never develop your IQ to the next level. Challenges make people develop IQs better when they are challenged. In conclusion, there are 3 types of intelligence that are in a simplified language. The first one, intelligent quotient, it gets a certificate. You go to school, use it, you get your PhD. Then when you get a job, you need EQ to get promoted. To become a manager, it's not that you have better papers than anybody else. It's because of EQ manager. To become a principal, not that I'm the most qualified in the staff room, no. How I can manage crisis and remain sober in a crisis, EQ. Then your family back home, social. How you can be a very good manager, but how is your family back there? There are many leaders, many corporate managers who do very well, but their family is in bad shape. So you work on the 3rd one, the social quotient. Now the incoming one, because the many challenges coming in, the AQ, conflict management is becoming, you must think outside the box to solve some life problems in the workplace. Those many remarks. Thank you. I know it is lunch hour. I'm sorry for being so fast.
Thank you.
I don't
Thank you. Mwalimu is always Mwalimu, and Mwalimu, we really appreciate you. Let me, here's some others saying, hey, Mwalimu, break. If they wish they could have a governor, they could have controlled you. See, very fast, the knowledge, a contribution. Thank you. Too fast. Thank you, it is very important to have shared. This is a course that takes 5 good days, and to some, when they want to be practically having even the tools, analyze the tools, the self, the management, and the team dynamics tools, it takes 10 days, like 2 weeks. A great course, which we will continue interacting with you, our great participants. We must thank you, and especially I thank the panelists Martin Gibbons, fantastic. Oh, thank you for your time. God will pay you. Though there's another P called profitability. I'll work on that. Mwalimu Jenga, don't worry. We impart the world, money will come later.
Yes.
Financial intelligence.
Okay.
I will work on that one. And to our participant, Dr. Jen Weru, Joy Odur, Julie Mwaluma, Shukrani Sana, Monica Laban, Paris, Samuel Kamau, oh, you are great people. Please get in touch with me, with Stan Consulting Group. We will be able to make good effort on how we can progress from where we are to where best we can be. We have just touched the beginning of emotional intelligence and the other intelligences. New ways of looking at things from Prof. Gibbons. Fantastic. Doctor, when are you graduating doctorate, Jenga? We are waiting. I promised a go. When you graduate,
I've seen
during that party. Yes.
Yeah, there are 2 papers. When I clear them,
yes,
then you can rest assured I'll be where you are. And then I am now after the professor's position.
Yes, Professor is fantastic. He's a great man. He's doing fantastic. And also thank you for bringing the other aspect of the social quotient and the adversity quotient, and also reminding us that artificial intelligence was said all those years ago. 40 years ago? 40?
Yeah, sure.
Was it 40 years ago?
Yes, but for 40 years ago.
60 years ago.
That is 1961.
So you can imagine now, and these things are happening to us. So as you look coronavirus, negatively, there is also opportunities, good offerings. We have become digital, we can consult, we can work. People, let us not stick to our old ways. There is an opportunity. In every cloud, there's a silver lining. I thank you all. Please, we shall be able to get to all of you in touch with all of you, our participants, one-on-one, and I thank you specifically. And the next time, I think, fellow participants, or anytime, you can request from my number 0722-575-595, dear participants, so that I can even invite you on a webinar meeting, on a Zoom meeting. On a Zoom webinar, it's restricted to see the panelists, but on the meeting, Zoom meeting, we can be able to see one another and be able to share. I thank.
Also, Dr.
Yes.
Tell them I'm running a program for students at home.
Yes.
They should get in touch with you. I can get them a link.
Yes.
That you're having every week and a test, and the online is free.
Yes.
They only pay 100 bob for a test per week.
Yes. Thank you.
And that test is very user friendly.
So
for students, high school students.
Participants, here we have an opportunity. You will be able, kindly contact us. We will be able to give you the link. Tomorrow is Saturday. Mwalimu Jenga and Dr. to be doing very good work.
Yeah.
You are children. They should not just sit at home. There is an opportunity from a great network that has been developed by Mr. John Jenga. Prof, last comments as you wave us.
No, just to say thank you, everybody, and I'll give me the chance to have a chat and participate. Thank you, Rachel, for keeping the notes and the chat going and keeping us all in order, and much appreciated. And I say, George, I'd love to hear more. You and I need to talk some more, because I think I talk too much, and I ate your time. I'm so sorry.
It's Doctor who gave me lunch hour when people are hungry. So I have no choice but go very fast.
Sure. You are a great man. Thank you. You have shared a lot of good stuff. And because also matters about personality, there are also personalities which require speed. Yeah. There are those also who require speed. They appreciate you. So Rachel, a final word from Rachel.
Okay, mine is to appreciate all the participants for your comments and the insights, the questions. You kept them coming. We invite you as Stan Consulting. We have a great program. We call it Emotional Intelligence and Transformative Leadership. We also have Advanced Leadership and Advanced Emotional Intelligence, which is able to take you through slowly as you understand and see how to develop the various competences as shared by Dr. Stanley, by George, and also by Martin. If you listened very well, there is a whole interrelationship of these elements that we're speaking about. And you can only relate it better when you're able to link up with you and your teams on a more detailed program. It's very huge, and we are able to take you through an assessment on the onset, which really steers a very good discussion and opens up to your own self in regard where are you in regard to your emotional intelligence and also how you relate with your team. Yeah, so it's a beautiful program and very empowering for both self and others. So asanteni sana. We look forward to engaging with you. Feel free. Dr. Stanley's number is shared on the screen. Also, George, talk to us. We'll be happy to see how we can develop the program even in a more customized way to fit the needs of your team. So asanteni sana. Welcome next time.
Thank you. If there is no any other question or comment, I appreciate you all. You can leave at your own pleasure and feel free to connect. And if you want to do it, if you need any assessment on yourself, please get in touch. We'll be glad to see how to make it a nice deal for you. A nice deal for you, your team, and everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
God bless.
Bye.
Have a nice great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Yes, Daktari.
Yes.
Daktari bana, when I looked at
maliza hii kitu bana.
When I looked at the clock, nikaona ni almost lunch hour. Nikasema umeniset.
You've done a good job. Unajua sometimes kupata kupata hii watu kutoka na kupata hii watu kutoka na hapa hivi Scotland si rahisi.
Yeah, si rahisi. He had done a good job. I've liked it. You see, are we sharing his notes? Very nice notes.
Yes, definitely we'll do so.
We can share. Yeah.
Yes, we'll share. Rachel will organize this to make sure that everybody is up to spec. Fantastic. We will be able to organize more. We'll let the people know. And thank you so much. Fantastic, and you are great.
The next one we shall be. Maybe we were very fast, but next time we shall allocate time.
No, it is good. It is good. It's also it's called adversity.
Yes.
Adversity intelligence. Yes. You are pushed
exactly.
Given little time. How do you deliver within that little time? It's good to practice that. So I really enjoy it. And thank you.
Asante.
So I'm a man of good behavior. I'm seeing of my attendees going. I don't like the behavior of closing the meeting. It's also great to be able to have this thing, etiquette of technology. Okay.
Thanks. Can I leave now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Malim. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Jagger. You've saved the chat?
Yes, I'm saving it.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you able to get where to save? Have you not seen where to save it from?
Yeah, it's what I'm looking at. It's what I'm looking at.
At the chat box, yeah? On the side, when you have opened the chat,
I've seen the option of save chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And then you open the folder where it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I can end it so that I can save the video.
Yes.
I want to edit.
Okay, it's fine.